I grew up in a neighborhood that doesn't make sense. If you drove through it in the daytime, you'd only see the boring parts. Rows of modest houses, identical trees, the same blue recycling bins lined up on the curb like soldiers. Kids' bikes tossed on lawns, chalk drawings on driveways, that kind of thing. But if you live here, really live here, you start to notice something else. Nothing ever really goes wrong. People joke about it. They call it the bubble. No one's car gets stolen. No one's house gets broken into. No one's dog vanishes. Even when a storm hits the city, the worst we get is a few branches on the ground and a power flicker that comes back in under a minute. And then there's my little sister, Mia. She was the reason we moved here. Mia was born with her lungs half-formed. I remember the machines in the hospital more than I remember her. Tubes and beeps and wires taped to skin that looked like it would bruise just from the air touching it. The doctors told my parents not to expect much. Then, my dad found this place. We moved into the house at the end of the lane when Mia was barely out of the ICU, and within a week, she started getting better. Her oxygen levels climbed. They weaned her off the machines early. Nurses said words like remarkable and unexpected. My mum cried in the car outside the hospital because no one could explain it, and she was terrified it meant the universe would take something back. It did. Just not in the way any of us understood at the time. The first night we slept in the new house, my dad did something strange. He went room to room, unrolling heavy and dark fabric shades over every window. They weren't the flimsy kind you get at the store. These were thick, like tarp, and they clunked when he latched them down into metal hooks drilled into the frames. I remember standing in the hallway in my pajamas, watching him. "Why are you locking them?" I asked. He forced a smile he didn't really feel. "Gets cold here at night," he said. "Keeps the drafts out." I didn't know much at 12, but I knew when my dad was lying. He did every window. Kitchen, living room, bathroom, my room, my parents' room, Mia's nursery last. I noticed the little locks on the bottom, cheap little silver things, the kind you'd see on a diary. I also noticed the ring of keys he slipped into his pocket when he finished. The next morning, he took a red marker and a sticky note and wrote 6 words in block letters, and "Do not open the shades at night." He stuck it on the fridge. At breakfast, he tapped the note with his finger and made sure my eyes followed. "You see that, Eli?" "Yeah. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not playing around. At night, when it's dark, you do not touch the shades. Understood?" I stared back at him. "Why?" He looked at my mom. She looked down at her coffee. Dad lowered his voice. "Because there's something out there after dark that we don't invite in, and the only thing it wants is to be seen." The next day, the doorbell rang. My mom straightened the new rug 3 times before she answered. On the porch stood 3 people with a casserole dish, a grocery bag, and a big, flat envelope. The man in front introduced himself as Carl. The woman behind him was Denise. The third was a short older lady named Mrs. Shu, and they called themselves the Neighborhood Welcome Group. They shook hands, complimented the house, cooed over Mia, who was sleeping in my mom's arms. I got handed a plastic container of cookies and a can of lemonade. It was normal. Until Carl asked if he could speak to my parents, just for a few minutes, privately. My mom tried to insist I could stay, but he shook his head. "It's better if he doesn't hear this," he said. "At least, not right away." My dad pushed a smile onto his face and told me to go set up my game console in my room. I didn't. Not really. I walked down the hall like a good son, closed my bedroom door, then opened it a crack, and sat on the floor with my ear pressed to the gap. The first thing I heard was Denise. "We're very glad you're here," she said. "Things tend to go well for folks on this street. Oh, you'll see. Jobs, health, little surprises. It's a blessed place." "Blessed?" my mom repeated. "We're not really religious." Mrs. Shu's voice was soft and careful. "It isn't about a church," she said. "It's about balance." There was a rustle of paper. The envelope, I guessed. Carl's voice was different now. Lower, serious. "Every night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., he said, something passes by on the sidewalk. It goes the whole length of the street. You'll hear it if you're awake and near a window." My dad gave a short, skeptical laugh. "Something? Like what? A raccoon?" Silence. Denise spoke. "You'll know it when you hear it," she said. "It's a humming. Not like a car or a pipe or any appliance. It's a tune. Always the same. Like someone humming a song to themselves as they walk." My mom tried to joke. "So, some insomniac in the neighborhood," she said. "Should I bake them brownies or—" Mrs. Shu cut in calmly. "No," she said. "You close your shades, you lock them, and you never ever look out while it passes. That is the one thing we ask. That is the rule of this street." Carl added, "The house you bought? The family before you understood. Mostly. The people before them didn't. That's what this is for." I heard the envelope slide across the coffee table. My dad's voice sharpened. "What is this?" "Reports," Denise said. "Articles, records. You don't need to study them all tonight, but you should understand that when people break the rule, their luck turns fast, and it doesn't stop turning until there's nothing left to break." My mom's voice dropped. "You're serious?" "Yes," Carl said. "Your daughter, Mia, is it? She's already breathing better than the hospital predicted, isn't she?" That made my blood go cold. They'd been here once. They knew. My mom didn't answer. Carl continued. "Good things happen here. A lot. More than is normal. But there is a cost. That cost is discipline. You don't look at the windows when you hear the humming. You don't invite it in. You don't think about it more than you have to." "And if we don't follow your little ritual?" my dad asked. There was a pause. Then the older woman spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Then the humming follows you." That night, my dad double-checked every shade. He tested each latch. My mom pretended not to watch him. At 1:55 a.m., my bedroom door opened. I'd only been pretending to sleep. "Up," my dad whispered. "Come on." I followed him down the hall to the living room. He sat on the couch, holding Mia against his chest. Her little breaths were uneven but real. He patted the cushion next to him. I climbed up and sat. The shades were down over the big front window. A streetlight leaked a thin line of color around the edges, but that was it. "Your mom's not coming?" I asked. "She's listening from the bedroom," he said. We sat there in silence, watching a blank window. At first, I thought I heard nothing. Then, sometime after the old digital clock on the DVD player flipped to 2:17, I noticed the quiet had a shape. A sound so soft it almost dissolved if I tried too hard to focus on it. Mm. Mm. Someone humming. Not words. Just a tune. Low and almost cheerful. It started faint, off to the left. That would be near the entrance of our lane. It grew a little louder as it approached the house. It never boomed or rattled. It just slid past. Mm-mm-mm. Mm. No footsteps, no breathing, no rustle of clothing. just the humming moving slowly in front of our house, then continuing on toward the cul-de-sac. I realized I was holding my breath when it faded away. My dad let out a long exhale. "That's it," he said. "That's all it ever does." "Who is it?" I whispered. He stared at the locked shade. "I don't know," he answered, "and we're going to keep it that way." Years passed. You'd be surprised what you can get used to. Most nights, I slept through it. But if I stayed up late playing games or scrolling on my phone with the brightness too high, I'd hear it drift by. Always 2:17. Always the same volume by the time it reached our place. Always fading at about 2:19. We stopped talking about it. The neighborhood thrived. Mr. Patel up the street won the state lottery. Twice. 2 different games. The older couple on the corner, the Johnsons, had been trying to sell their house for years before we came. They suddenly got an offer for above asking price on a rental property they'd forgotten they had. A kid on my bus found a meteorite in his backyard. A real one. Got on the news for it. Every year, someone here landed a dream job, beat a diagnosis, stumbled into a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And Mia? Mia was a miracle. By 9, she could run without stopping. By 10, doctors were asking for her case file at conferences. By 11, they were calling her remission complete. The neighborhood called it normal. Kids who lived outside the bubble whispered that our street was cursed. Kids who lived inside whispered that we were blessed. I didn't know which word to choose. Both words were probably right. The summer I turned 15, the house 3 doors down went up for sale. The old lady who'd lived there, Ms. Reyes, passed away in her sleep at 98. She'd never had kids. No one came to the funeral. The welcome group put flowers on her porch and cleaned out her fridge. A month later, a moving van showed up. The new family had a boy my age named Jonah. He was the kind of kid who chewed gum loudly and kicked pebbles at parked cars just to hear the ping. He moved in on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, he was at my door. "You're Eli, right?" he asked, leaning on the frame like we were already friends. "Yeah." "I heard you've lived here forever," he said. "So, what's with the bedtime story committee?" "The what?" He smirked. "The 3 creeps with the casserole," he said. "They came yesterday. Gave my parents this whole lucky neighborhood speech, then a big pile of old newspaper printouts. And then they told us there's some supernatural caroler out there that we're not allowed to look at. My mom almost laughed in their faces. My stomach twisted. "They told you not to look at the windows when you hear humming, right?" I asked. "Oh, they told us a lot of things," he said. "My dad thinks it's some kind of HOA cult. I think it's the most obvious scare tactic ever. Like, seriously, don't look at the mysterious sound. That's horror movie 101. He mimed, shaking in fear. "Ooh, I spooky." I didn't laugh. "You should listen to them," I said. "It's not a joke." He raised an eyebrow. "You believe it, then?" I thought about Mia, who was in the backyard right now, drawing planets on the sidewalk with chalk. "I believe we follow the rule," I said. It took less than a week for Jonah to invite himself for a sleepover. My parents said yes because they still wanted to be normal. Because the neighborhood was safe. Because the worst thing that could happen, in their minds, was a broken lamp or a spilled soda. They forgot that the worst thing that could happen here doesn't come from inside the house. We played games, watched videos, pretended not to check the time. At around midnight, Mia tapped on my bedroom door and asked if she could come in. "Go back to bed," I said automatically. She opened the door anyway, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "I had the humming dream again," she whispered. "Can I stay in here?" My chest loosened a little. I moved aside and let her curl up on my bed, while Jonah sat on the floor beside my desk chair. He waited until she was half asleep to speak up. "So," he began, voice low, eyes on me. "Is it true?" "Is what true?" "That there's a humming guy out there every night," he said. "You hear him. You sit on the couch with your dad. You all pretend not to be terrified." "I'm not talking about this," I said. "It's almost 2, he persisted. "We could just listen, right? Just listening isn't against the rules, is it?" His tone was mocking, but his eyes had a spark of real curiosity. I glanced at Mia. Her eyelids fluttered. She was listening. "You can hear it from my room if you're quiet," I admitted. "But we're not opening anything." Jonah smiled like he'd won something. "Good enough," he said. We killed the lights at 2:10. The house made settling sounds, the fridge humming, the air conditioning kicking on, some neighbor's dog barking twice and then shutting up. Mia's small hand found mine under the blanket. "What if it's lonely?" she whispered. "What?" "The humming person," she said. "What if they just want someone to hum back?" "I don't think that's all they want," I said. The digital clock on my dresser flipped to 2:17. At first, nothing. Then, from far down the street, like someone humming from the other end of a tunnel. Mm. Mm. It slid closer. Jonah sat up straighter. "Okay, that's actually creepy," he muttered. The humming grew a little louder. It passed the house on the corner, then the one next to it. I could picture the path in my head. Sidewalk, driveways, the leaning maple tree, the mailbox someone had dented last winter. Mm. Mm. It reached our house. It was quiet, but in the dark, it was all there was. Mia held her breath. Jonah whispered, "Just a person, right? Some psycho with a bedtime routine." "Don't talk," I hissed. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm. It kept moving, past us, down to the cul-de-sac, fading, then gone. We stayed frozen for a minute. "See?" I said finally. "We heard it. We didn't die. That's all it ever does." "For you," Jonah said. He waited until the next day to show me what he'd done. We were sitting under the shade of the maple in my yard, and trading half-finished stories about students at school, when he pulled a small metal shape from his pocket and held it up between his fingers. At first, I thought it was a bottle opener. Then I saw the little teeth. A key. "Your dad's been on this street committee thing, right?" Jonah said. "Going door to door, dropping off the cursed scrapbook and the casserole." "Yeah," I said slowly. "Funny thing about those little window locks," he continued. "Everybody uses the same cheap brand." The air around us felt suddenly thin. "What did you do?" I asked. My voice sounded far away. He smiled, wide and wrong. "I didn't do anything," he said. "Yet. I just borrowed some information. My dad knows a guy who changes locks for apartment complexes. I showed him a picture of your window latch. He told me the model. I ordered this online." He closed his fist around the key. "I'm not going to live in terror of some bedtime ghost story," he said. "Tonight, I'm going to prove there's nothing there. I'm going to look, and then I'm going to laugh in Carl's face." My heart hammered against my ribs. "You're not doing that in my house," I said. "Of course not," he replied. "I'm doing it in my house, but it's more fun if you're watching." That night, my parents went to bed before midnight. My dad checked the shades twice. He didn't know about Jonah's key. Mia pretended to be asleep, then came to my room as soon as the hallway lights went out. You and Jonah are being weird, she said. What's going on? Nothing, I said. She crossed her arms. The old oxygen scars on her nose were pale white lines now, but they always showed darker when she frowned. Don't treat me like I'm made of glass, she said. I know about the humming. I know about the rule. I'm not stupid. Exactly, I said. You're not stupid, so you're going to stay here. No matter what you hear tonight, you don't open the door, you don't open the shades, and you don't come looking for me. Got it? Her face changed. Where are you going? She asked. I swallowed. To make sure Jonah doesn't get himself killed, I said. Just before 2, I slipped out the back door. The neighborhood was quiet in that thick, cotton way it gets, when everyone is truly asleep. No cars, no TVs bleeding through walls. Just the distant hum of the highway, and my own breathing. Jonah's house had one light on upstairs, his room. I picked up a small stone and tossed it at the glass. He appeared a second later, sliding the shade up a crack. He grinned when he saw me. Right on time, he said, cracking his window enough to hear. I hissed, Don't open it yet. Just don't. He rolled his eyes. I'm not an idiot, he said. We wait for the spooky humming. I count to 5. I peek. I laugh. The end. Go hide somewhere if you're scared. I moved to the edge of his yard, where the shadows from the trees were darkest, and stared at his window. From here, I could see 3 houses down toward the entrance of the lane. My phone screen said 2:16. I shoved it into my pocket and wiped my palms on my jeans. The digital clock in Jonah's room flashed faint red. He sat on his bed, legs crossed, facing the window. The shade was down, but I saw the bottom edge tremble just a little as his knee bounced. 2:17. The humming started, far away, down near the street sign. It floated toward us. I could see nothing moving on the sidewalk. The streetlights made empty golden islands. No shadows crossed them. It reached Jonah's house. My skin went cold. From where I stood under the tree, the sound was louder than I'd ever heard it. It was right there, on the other side of his wall, on the other side of that thin pane of glass. I could see Jonah's silhouette, perfectly still now, facing the window. I wanted to shout. My throat wouldn't work. He moved. The shade jumped as he pulled the cord. I heard the little clack of his lock turning from the inside. The shade shot up. For a heartbeat, I saw only my own reflection in his window, small and warped. Then something leaned toward the glass from the other side. I clamped my eyes shut. The humming cut off. The silence was a physical blow. It felt like someone had dropped a weight onto the world. Jonah screamed. I don't remember deciding to move. 1 second I was under the tree. The next I was sprinting to his front door, hands out, fingers numb. The scream cut off mid-note, like someone had pressed pause on him. I pounded on the door. Jonah! No answer. Lights flicked on inside. His parents' bedroom. The hall. I heard footsteps. The door opened an inch before the chain caught. Mr. Clark's right eye glared out at me through the crack, wild and bloodshot. What did you do? He demanded. His breath smelled like sleep and whiskey. I didn't. He looked. I stammered. Something hit the side of the house. Hard. The wall shook. The picture frames inside rattled. A sound started at the front door like someone drumming their fingers on the wood. Tap, tap, tap. Don't open it, I whispered. Mrs. Clark appeared behind her husband, face pale. What is that? She asked. The tapping grew louder. Tap, 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 tap. It moved, from the front door, to the bay window, to the wall right next to my head. It didn't sound like a hand. It didn't sound like knuckles. It was too fast, too precise, like someone dragging a dozen small stones across every surface at once. Tap, 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 tap. It jumped to the back of the house, then to the side. Then, all at once, it was everywhere. Walls, roof, doors, chimney. The whole house became a drum. Inside, someone screamed again. I couldn't tell if it was Jonah or his mother. Mr. Clark fumbled with the chain, slammed the door shut, and slid the deadbolt. I was left on the porch, heart pounding, surrounded by noise. Tap, 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 tap. It wasn't random. It had a rhythm. A warped mirror of the humming tune turned into percussion. Except now it was knocks. Hard, unrelenting knocks. I stumbled back into the yard, hands over my ears. It didn't help. The sound vibrated up through my feet. A window on the second floor flicked open a hair. I saw movement inside. Mrs. Clark trying to slam it shut again. The tapping rushed to that window like angry rain. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the pounding shifted. It was moving away from their house, toward mine. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran. By the time I reached my front steps, my lungs were knives. The tapping had jumped ahead of me, racing along the siding, hammering at the front door before I even grabbed the knob. Thud, thud, thud. My dad yanked the door open, pulled me inside, and slammed the deadbolt. His face was the same color as the walls. "What happened?" he snapped. Jonah. He looked," I gasped. "He opened it. He saw it." My mom appeared in the hall with Mia clutched to her side. Mia's eyes were huge. The tapping surrounded us. Front door, back door, kitchen window, bathroom window. The sound ran laps around the house. Mia started to cry. "Basement," my mom said. "We should go to the—" The basement door rattled violently, cutting her off. The tapping slammed against it from the other side. We all froze. A new sound joined the knocking. A voice, a soft, thin, coming from the front door. "Open," it said. My stomach turned to ice. It sounded like Mia. "Open the door," the voice repeated, perfectly mimicking the way she begged when she wanted something. Maya buried her face in my mother's shirt. "Don't listen," my dad said. He grabbed the baseball bat he keeps by the coat rack. My mom picked up the fire poker from beside the fireplace. The voice at the door changed. "Please," it said, and now it sounded like my mother. Same tone, same vibrato. "Please, let me in. It's cold out here." My mom made a low, animal sound in her throat. The kitchen window shook. The back door rattled in its frame. The voice multiplied. My own voice, from the back door. "Dad, it's me. I'm stuck out here, please." Carl's voice, from the side window. "It's safe now. You can open up." Mia's voice, from the basement door. "I'm scared. Let me in, please, please, please." She sobbed against my chest. "That's not me," she cried. "That's not me." "I know," I whispered. The tapping escalated, harder and harder, until it felt like the house was breathing in panicked gasps. My dad shouted over the noise. "You're not coming in," he yelled. "You're not welcome here. You got what you wanted out there. Leave this house alone." For a moment, everything stopped. No tapping, no voices. We held our breath. Then, at the living room window, inches away from my face, something tapped. Once, twice, softly. Tap, tap. I didn't see it. I didn't look. But I knew, with a certainty that made my bones ache, that something was on the other side of that shade, inches from the glass, leaning in, listening. It exhaled. Not a human exhale. Not exactly. It sounded like a sigh dragged through gravel. Then it spoke, in a voice I'd never heard before. Not a mimic, not stolen, its own. "Not you," it said. "Not yet." The tapping didn't stop all at once. It faded. It moved away, knocking on fewer surfaces, as if it were walking down the street again. Occasionally, it would stop at a house and drag its fingers along the siding, a long, scraping sound that made my teeth hurt. At some point, my dad got us all into the living room. We huddled together on the floor in a pile of blankets, far from every window and door. No one slept. The clocks in the house ticked toward morning. At 5:30, the sky outside turned from black to blue. At 6:15, the first bird tried a hesitant chirp. At 6:43, my dad stood up, rolled his shoulders, and walked to the nearest shade. "Stay here," he said. He unlocked it with shaking hands. He pulled it up an inch. Just sidewalk, empty street, wet-looking patches on the concrete like something had dragged itself along the ground. He lifted it higher. On the porch, lined up in a neat row just outside our door, were 5 perfectly smooth stones. Each one was about the size of an eyeball. We never saw Jonah at the bus stop again. By noon, a moving truck had appeared at his house. Men carried boxes to the curb. Mr. and Mrs. Clark moved like sleepwalkers, faces gray, eyes sunk deep. They didn't look at anyone. When my dad went over, they barely acknowledged him. I watched from the window as he tried to speak to them, hands open in a helpless gesture. Mrs. Clark finally turned her head, just enough for me to see her face. She looked hollow, like someone had scooped everything out of her behind the eyes. Jonah got into the back seat of their car, without looking at any of the kids who had gathered on the sidewalk. As they drove past our house, he happened to glance up at my window. Our eyes met. His were wrong, flat, colorless, like the stones on our porch. He didn't wave, he didn't blink. He just stared, with a look that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite fear. It was envy. Then the car turned the corner and was gone. The welcome group came by that evening. No casserole this time. They sat in our living room while Mia colored on the floor, and I pretended not to listen. "We warned them," Denise said, wringing her hands. "We did everything we could." "It got in?" my dad asked. Carl shook his head. "If it had gotten in, Aunt, you'd know," he said. "What you heard was it asking. What you felt was it being refused. But he saw it. That's enough." "What happens to them now?" my mom asked. Mrs. Shue sighed. "They'll keep having things go wrong," she said softly. "Little things, big things, accidents, illness, financial ruin. They can move as far as they like. It doesn't matter. Once you've given it what it wants, once it's been seen, it has rights." Mia put down her crayon. "Why didn't it take Eli?" she asked. The room went very quiet. Carl cleared his throat. "He didn't look," he said. "He closed his eyes. He obeyed the rule. That matters." Mia frowned. "But it talked to him," she said. "That's not fair." "No," my dad agreed. "It's not." It's been a year. Mia is taller, stronger. She doesn't need inhalers anymore. My mom got a promotion she didn't even ask for. My dad's side business exploded out of nowhere. Our garden grows vegetables we never planted. Sometimes, a package shows up on our porch we didn't order. A kitchen tool my mom mentioned once. A rare book my dad had bookmarked weeks ago. A toy Mia dreamed about and described at breakfast. We check the labels. There's never a return address. The humming still comes every night at 2:17. I can hear it more clearly now. Not just in the living room, in my room, in the hallway. It's as if the whole house has gotten thinner. Sometimes it slows down when it passes our place. Just a fraction. Like it's lingering. Like it's waiting. We've doubled down on the rule. No more sleepovers. No more explanations for guests beyond, "We really like our privacy." My dad keeps the window keys in a safe now, hidden behind a false panel in the closet. Mia doesn't talk about the humming as much, but sometimes I catch her sitting on the floor with her stuffed rabbit, singing under her breath. Not quite the tune it hums, something close. The stones from that morning sit in a wooden box under my bed. I should have thrown them away. I know that. Every time I touch one, my hand feels numb for an hour. But I keep them, as a reminder. Because the truth is, we're not going to leave. We could. We could sell the house, move to another state, pretend none of this ever happened. But if we do that, do Mia's lungs stay healed? Does my dad keep his steady stream of coincidences? Does my mom's blood pressure stay perfect? So even with her family history, would we be the ones starting fresh with hollow eyes and a shadow that hums outside every window we ever live near? We made a bargain, even if we never signed anything. The neighborhood thrives. We obey the rule. We don't look. And in exchange, the thing that hums outside at 2:17 a.m. keeps walking past our door. Most nights. On the nights when it slows down. On the nights when the humming falters for half a breath, right in front of our house. I lie there in my bed, eyes shut tight, and I think about something it said through the shade that night. Not you. Not yet. I used to take comfort in that last word. Now I understand it was a promise. A promise that one day it will stop humming and start knocking again. And when it does, I just hope I remember how much our luck has cost. Because all it will take is one mistake, one glance, one crack in a shade, for it to finally get what it's been walking this street for all along. Someone who looks it in the face and can never look away.